This is something else. This is Ichiro Oda upping his game this arc. This is what that is. This is Ichiro Oda telling us, I'ma up my game this chapter. This is Ichiro Oda making one of the best chapters of Whole Cake Island, period. This chapter is phenomenal. This chapter is pretty damn good. I really love this chapter. It's we've had a lot of iffy chapters in Whole Cake Island. A lot, especially in the Seducing Woods type section and all that jazz. A little bit during the wedding. A lot of trouble for pacing in this arc, particularly. But what we saw this chapter, nice conclusion in my perspective. We saw things that we didn't think Oda could do. Not could do, but would do, actually, would be more preferable. And what I'm talking about here is the romance between Pudding and Sanji. But I'm going to get there. We're going to get there when I get there. Overall, there are 5 parts. 5 parts to this chapter. The Carrot Pedro Sanji bit. First part. The musical. Third is the pudding situation. Fourth is Katakuri. And fifth is the battle scene. Now, at the very beginning, we get a flashback. We get a flashback of Pedro. We get a flashback of when Sanji first arrived at Zou and what Pedro told him. And the relationship between Pedro and Sanji, even though it wasn't long-lived, it was still there. And Sanji gets to find out that Pedro's dying, and Carrot confronts him, and she dies. And at this point of time, I would like to remind you guys that this we might have not realized, because Whole Cake Island in certain bits was like this, because there were action bits and you need to move, you need to move, you need to move. And Pedro's death was no exception. It happened like this, and we had to immediately continue the escape from Big Mom. So not a lot of people, we didn't really get, as a fandom, we didn't really get the impact that this death caused to some members of, not some members, but the people with the Straw Hats. Mainly Carrot and the Straw Hats themselves, because he had to move. And now that the mist has settled, now that the storm has passed, we get the mourning of Pedro. And I honestly think this sets up Carrot to be a Nakama. Two ways. Now that Pedro is gone, what is Carrot going to do with the Straw Hats alone by herself? That's the first bit. The second bit is this tragic backstory that a lot of people say Carrot is lacking. This is the thing. Carrot witnessed a genuine genocide, a unadulterated, gruesome genocide in person with Jack the Trout in Zou. She literally saw some of her friends being crucified. And yet some of the fans are like, oh, she didn't see anything tragic. There you go. Tragedy. She saw someone who arguably is like a master to her or an older brother. She saw that person blow themselves up. Tragedy. So in those two sense, I honestly think this is a setup for Carrot joining the crew. And also it holds a higher importance. That death, Pedro's death, is a message from Oda telling us, I am not sticking by the old formula pre-New World. This is the new world. This is Ayonko's territory. There are consequences. There are consequences. There are stakes now. You can't just waltz into Big Mom's territory all cocky and expect nothing to happen to you. You're going to lose some folk, at the very least. Worst case scenario, you're all dead. That's what Oda's telling us right now with that whole bit with Pedro. And seeing the mourning of Pedro by Carrot, again, it's really, really heart-wrenching to see a character like this go through something like that, where someone who's like a brother to her blew himself up. And you really get an understanding of the gravity of the situation for her and the importance of Pedro in her life during that one moment where she's crying over Sanji. Now the second bit. It's the musical undertone that we see throughout the chapter afterwards. It starts with a little soul pocus, soul pocus, soul pocus, soul pocus after that scene. That's where it starts. And in my perspective, it's more than just a musical we're going to see in the anime. I think that this music is a vivid illustration of the euphoric dreams of grandeur that Big Mom has as part of her ailment, her psychological ailment, her psychological condition, her messed up head. You know, the sweet tune is sickening when you see it. Like, it's the judo effect. If you haven't watched the movie Judo, the movie Judo ends in one of the more gruesome fashions imaginable, where a kid literally murders his own father. And then right after this tragic scene, we cut to like kindergarten children singing, and it's creepy. And that's what we're getting. It's the same effect. It's the Judo effect of anime. That's what that is. The creepiness of this childish song in the midst of basically combat and death. And this illustrates to you the psychological stability of Big Mom, which is non-existent. So that's the musical. That's part two. Part three is the pudding situation. We have never seen Oda before this point. We've never seen Oda incorporate elements of romance in any of his work. That's a fact. That is a bona fide fact. We have never seen Oda incorporate elements of romance like this in any of his work. We've seen the whole like Boa Hancock, oh, I'm all over you, Luffy, oh, kawaii, but that doesn't really count because it's a gag. It's supposed to be a joke. And it's not the same I love you type struggle. Like Sanji and Pudding, that was like what happened this arc is straight out of a romantic tragedy. That's what that is. Oda pulled a card from Makata Shinkai's handbook. That's what that is. He pulled a card straight out of the anime Your Name. That's what he did. He's like, okay, incorporate memory loss and the potential of permanent separation. Boom, let's go. And in a way, it's the incorporation of this tragedy that I think sets up a bigger future for Sanji and Pudding at the very end. And I know I'm going to be alone on this. I know most of the people won't agree with me when I say this. But I honestly think that what we just saw this chapter is an indicator that Pudding and Sanji are going to end up together somehow. Somehow at the end of this arc. Because what Pudding did, oh my god, I felt sorry for her. And I rarely feel sorry for Pudding. She erased all of her memory, all of Sanji's memories of herself to make him feel better at her own expense. I mean, I was speechless. If you watch my live reaction, I was straight speechless for 2 minutes. I think it was 2 minutes. I didn't say a goddamn word. I was like, for good reason too. It was executed well in my perspective, and it's something we don't really see Oda doing. It came straight out of nowhere. Out of nowhere. Now the fourth bit is Katakuri and his siblings. And this is important because this is Oda humanizing, adding 3 dimensions to the Big Mom Pirates. We see Katakuri as a kid. We see Burley as a kid. We see the other elder sons as kids. And that adds depth to all of them. It really does. Seeing them as kids like that and the way they grow up, it's more like family. It's more like, I'm going to take care of you, big brother. And it's this whole sweet... I mean, that... I felt like my heart was going to explode with the Pudding situation, followed directly by the Burley situation with Katakuri, where she's sitting down, like the younger sister, talking to her older brother. I mean, Burley, one of the better sisters in the verse. Straight up. One of the better sisters in the verse. Straight up. Out of nowhere, too. We didn't expect that. I mean, it was hinted at that the Big Mom Pirates actually care for one another, but this chapter, proof right there. And it's so refreshing to see that. It's so refreshing to see this third dimension added to those characters. When Oven said that he didn't want to kill his own father-in-law, I am pretty damn sure he meant he didn't want to kill his own father-in-law, but he had to for the sake of the kingdom. And he didn't want to kill Chiffon I'm pretty sure he didn't, but he had to do it for the sake of the kingdom. This is the thing. A lot of folk are used to characterizing villains as solely bad and um, heroes and protagonists are solely good. And it's not the people's fault that this is going on. It's simply a lot of shows nowadays are very much so cookie cutter black and white, that we don't really get to see something like this where basically the Big Mom Pirates now are like a competing team. That's what they are. That's what they are right now. That's what we're getting right now. And I really like this. Now finally, the battlefield. The battlefield. That's the fifth and final part. And the battlefield, we have the Germa and we have the Sun Pirates. And Big Mom arrives. The people who are in trouble at this point aren't the Sun Pirates. They're the Germa. And I'll explain why. All the fishermen have to do to escape at this moment in time is sink. All they have to do is sink. The Germa have no way out. I don't see them being able to escape. And if they do by some miracle, if they have like some sky mechanism, some plane type mechanism, then bully for them. But since we don't have any sort of knowledge of them having any sort of technology like this, I don't see how they could escape. But the fishermen, definitely. I could see them escaping easy. However, with all the death flags over Jinbei, I don't think Jinbei is going to die because the soul pocus thing doesn't work on Jinbei. It doesn't. And the whole theory I put up there last chapter review was null and void when I started thinking about it, because Jinbei's soul cannot be pulled out of his body, therefore homies cannot be made with Jinbei's soul. So as far as we know, that can't happen. But I'm just at this point wondering, and I wonder where the next chapter is going to be. Are we going to continue with this whole shenanigan type deal situation next chapter? Or are we going to move on to other things and go to other places like we did at the end of Dressrosa, like we did at the end of Punk Hazard? Please tell me what you guys think in the comments below. And until next time, guys, this is Anime Gypsy, and I'm out. See you guys later. Bye.